down. Sure enough, down there was a small raft with about 30 or 40 animals. Nobody knew what it was, except the people who lived in that area. They didn't talk about it. Nobody knew what was down there. A few people went down, and sure enough, the last known surviving population of sea otters was in that spot. That one group there in the 30s, what you see now are the descendants along the California coast. So they started coming back. They were under protection. Some of them were moved up to Monterey Bay, relocated. The rest of them just started coming down because nobody was hunting them anymore. So more babies, they started spreading. Just like a marine protected area, the more animals that are here, they're going to move away and start populating other parts of the coast. Sea otter is a very important species for the health of the ocean. You might not think it, but without the sea otter, there wouldn't be any kelp fields out here. And there weren't. Most of the kelp, you don't see them right now because of the winter winds and rains and the heavy surf that's out here. There's them all up, you see it all up on the beach. In the summer, it's all brown out in there because this is a big kelp field. But without the sea otters, the kelp field would disappear because sea urchins love to eat kelp. And they mow it down. It looks like a nice jungle, so to speak, but it'll turn into a desert at some point. Without the kelp, the plants that grow out here, fish don't use it. Fish don't use it. And it's very important to have them here. They use the kelp themselves for resting in. They wrap their babies up in it so they don't drift away while they're hunting, or they tie themselves up and take a small nap so they don't drift away. And it's just very important for them. 1980 here, the first elephant seals known in this area hauled out about that year. 1989.
So they were not here before that?
There's no known historical record of them being here anywhere along this coast. About 22 of them showed up. A couple of years later, a couple of pups were born. Last year there was about 5,000 pups born. So it's a big breeding area, big haul-out area. This is the largest marine elephant seal marine rookery on the coastline itself. There's bigger ones on the Channel Islands, I think up around the Farallon. But on the coast, we're about 4 to 5 miles. The beach is starting just north of here, all the way down to where you turn back in here itself. There's about 20 to 25,000 here during this time of year. Males come in about mid-November, late November. The big ones fall out, stake claim to their part of the beach, so when ladies start showing up about a month later, they can wave a flipper or a snout or honk at them and say, come on in, I got a great place for you to park. Get along with each other and eventually move out into the ocean and out of sea.
And the female doesn't have anything to do with that, huh?
No, they don't.
So they pretty much fatten them up and then abandon them.
That's correct. Yeah.
Wow.
I've heard some humans would like to do that.
Yeah, well.
It's possible they have, because they just, it's like anything. If it's a crowded area, you're going to look for something that's a little less crowded. Until mid-April, then then some of the juveniles will still be around. And around the beginning of May, females start coming back in, and they have to molt. Pretty smelly, pretty noisy. They go back out again, they start over. So it's kind of a cycle. Every 6-7 months they come in, do something, then they leave. They have to keep going to see.
Do you know before this?
Single buildings, no insulation. You're crammed in there. You're trying to stay out of bad weather. But the men that work here and have a salary here were outside. They were cleaning. They were repairing. Beautiful place. Great place to visit. But if you're working here all the time, it's very isolated. It could be quite miserable. Some people loved it here. Some people couldn't wait to get out. Grandfather clock, about 33, 34 feet in diameter. The walls are 5 feet thick at this point. They taper to 18 inches at top. So it provides the stability that this lighthouse needs to keep standing. It's not reinforced. This is all freestanding masonry building. Everything that's in the walls is anchored into brick. The steps go up to the top, about 97 steps to the top of the platform. There would have been an extra 20 steps inside the 4th floor, and that's the piece that's not there anymore. A keeper would come in here about an hour prior to sunset, fill up his little 2 and 3 gallon containers, come over to this barrel. There would have been 8 of them around this platform. Fill them up with lard oil, go up to the top. This wick would have been sitting inside of a container. We'll fill the container up, lit the wick to get it ready, and it would have stayed lit until about an hour after sunrise the next morning, and we would extinguish it. But it would have sat inside the lamp, right about there, and you could see this light 20 miles out to sea. This was a first order Fresnel lens, developed in the early 1800s by Augustus Fresnel. Did a lot of work on trying to figure out how to get light to go further out into the ocean, so the ships didn't have to sail right along these rocks and these bluffs to figure out where they were. It's supposed to be a cellar underneath this lighthouse. But I mentioned this rock is so hard and dense, Native Americans used it for stone tools. When they were using gunpowder to blast the platform off to set this lighthouse on, they kept blasting and blasting, but guess what? No way to get through that rock. They were running out of money. No building was built. They had to change. They brought the platform up a little bit, laid the brick down here. The hole was still there. This buttress was put in to store the lard oil up on top. This is the only known lighthouse in the United States that has a configuration like this. But he would go up, the lightkeeper would come in, go up, fill the container, crank that weight up with this handle, and the crank is up to the top, up to the base of the first landing, and let it go. The weight down there. There would have been a governor on this light. The governor would have slowed down and sped up the light to blink at it in precise fashion, precise timing. And it would have turned. And it would have flashed 100 miles out to sea. You're on that ship, time the flashes, it told you where you were at night. This pole unit is about 9 feet tall. weighed about 8 to 9 tons. All glass, brass, and cast iron. A large mechanism, just like a grandfather. You put a weight on one side of the chain, draws down. When it gets down, you put the weight over on the other side, it draws down. It turns that grandfather clock. Same principle. But they had to do this every 2 to 3 hours because when the weight got down to that bottom of the hole, it had to obviously be rotated back up. But why isn't it up there anymore? Well, 1948, last day of the year, there was a small earthquake off the coast, shook this building enough that the top portion started cracking and losing brick. But more importantly, the lamp itself tilted to one side. And they couldn't save it, they being the Coast Guard. And right away, they were going to push this lamp off, push the whole building, top of the building off, because if it had all fallen down at once, it would have probably brought the whole building down. So it was dismantled, re-established down in Cambria, and if you want to see something that is a gorgeous piece of equipment, the Fresnel lens, the actual lens and all the mechanisms are all put back together inside a glass building next to the VFW hall down there. And it's a great place, great thing to look at. Take you a couple minutes off of Highway 1. And so what did he do for entertainment? There was a piano here. They made use of that, learned how to play and sing, but also the iPad of the day showed up on those ships out at sea. Every 3 months, a traveling library was dropped off. He had 3 months to read it. When the ship showed up again, closed up, another box was dropped off. $90,000 was spent to build it, to get it going. Just to put the top 30 feet back on, we're talking anywhere from $3 to $10 million. We don't know how long it's going to take to get the top back up there, but at some point we hope to have it back up there looking like this. So, yeah, there was somebody watching the sea out there. They looked for a fall back. Because if that fall came in, these engines had to start. And they had to get them going quickly because they had a warning ship out there that there's a problem sitting out there with full spot on that rock. If it was clear like this, and it was clear all year, these engines would only start just to make sure they could start. But if it was foggy for a month, they could see for a month, they would run 24 hours a day, 30 days a week, whatever time period it was. So every 2 seconds, 20, it changed over time. It was noted in this book. This is the book all ships carried. Told them where they are when they saw this lighthouse. Very noisy. I think this will work. Initially there was a whistle. Then a siren. Then a diaphone. Yeah, air raid siren. Or a lunch siren. Diaphone. Then a diaphragm. About San Francisco or something, it was a foggy day and fog was going on. They didn't need it in 1975. The main reason was the shipping lanes that used to be 2-3 miles off the coast were now 30, 40, 50 miles off the coast. Back in the 1970s when the Environmental Protection Agency first started, the Endangered Species Act, things were put under protection. The whales have been under protection since the turn of the last century. So are the elephant seals, but you know, we're spending money. How do you know it's working? How do you know you're protecting something? How do you know they're coming back? And so this is the closest place along the west coast from Mexico up to Alaska that gray whales will come that they can be counted. Almost touched. As I mentioned, they come very close along here. And so, turn of last century, there's an estimation of about 200 to 300 gray whales left along this whole coastline all the way back to Alaska. Hunted for blubber, obviously. Same with the elephant seals. Turn of the last century, there was about 200 known elephant seals. They were down in Baja. The Mexican government put them under protection at that time because the tourists liked to see them in the way, and it wasn't economical for people to go kill them anymore. So, under protection, started counting, started looking at them, started interpolating, started working graphs. About the mid-90s, the gray whales this is where they were. They thought this is where they should be in about another 20, 30 years. And sure enough, from the 200, there's about 25,000 now. It's a really good success story. Elephant seals, obviously I mentioned the first group showed up 1989 here, and there's about 25,000 down there now. There's many more up and down the coast. As far north as Año Nuevo and the Farallon Islands, and down towards Mexico, the Channel Islands. But from that one little group, much more. Sea otters, I mentioned 30 or 40, Bixby Creek. They started repopulating the coast. They were hunted obviously not for blubber, but for their fur. On our heads, there's probably 400 or 500 follicles per square inch, top of our head. On a sea otter, there's about 1 million. So that's how they stay warm. They don't have the blubber like the other animals do to keep them insulated from the cold. They need this fur, they take care of it, it's very luxurious, they were hunted for it, and we do have some that you can feel if you'd like. Watching the elephant seals, they can get to be upwards of, the big guys, upwards of about 5,000 pounds. I mentioned they don't eat, and they'll look like this in about 4 months. So they'll lose about half their weight. He's out there protecting his harem, his portion of the beach. Doesn't want anybody else bothering the group that he has. But the females will be the same way. They're pretty plump, pretty big when they come in, about 1,000 pounds. But they'll be about half their weight, because you'll notice this guy, he's about 200 to 300 pounds. He's been nursing for 30 or 40 days. He started off as a little 60-pound pup about that big. And so he's sucking off mom. And then she needs to get out. As I mentioned, they're on their own. But you cannot bother these animals, because if you do, if you bother a mom, a mother, just give birth to a pup, and you're down on the beach running around trying to touch and pet it and say, oh, this is cute, they're going to leave at some point because you've disturbed them. And they're nervous and they're scared. And if they leave, their pup's going to starve to death, and they'll never have a chance to get out into the ocean and move along. And they can move faster than you can. So if this guy thinks you're a threat and he wants you off the beach, he's not out on it. There's no way. I've seen him move. There was a couple here this morning up on the beach north of us. Like that. He was 100 yards up there chasing the male off. Females will be about 1,800 pounds. The sea lions we did see out on the rock about 1,000. Harbor seals about 800. And the sea otters I mentioned, 25% of their weight a day, but they can be upwards of 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds. So just imagine 10 to 15 pounds of food a day just to maintain health.
I saw a video comparing that to a grizzly skull, and I guess this is quite a bit bigger than a grizzly.
Yes, it is.
When they would play like foghorn, you said that would go constantly, right? So was that like kind of unbearable for the people living here, or once you got farther away over there, wasn't it bad?
No, you could. You had that foghorn as it got lower. You could hear 10 to 12 miles out to sea.
So
the whistle you could hear 2 or 3 miles. So I mentioned Mr. Thorndike, longest-serving lightkeeper here, 26 years, and he loved it here until that thing started making noise. He was gone in a heartbeat. And he moved down, opened a store up in San Simeon called Thorndike's. It's now called Sebastian's. So great place to have a lunch. I'm not, if you're hungry, really good food, good fish tacos. But that's an original building from the early 1900s there.